This is the third part of the sample exam for getting your certificate for SolidWorks. And what we're going to look at right now is the assembly part of that sample exam. So you can see in the top right corner there what our assembly is going to look like. What we want to do is we want to go up and we want to say new, and we want to say a new assembly, and we say OK. All right, so this is our start dialog that we get when we start a new assembly. It's actually looking for the part that we're going to bring in. But one of the things we want to look at first before we do that is we want to look up at the assembly, and we want to notice what order it makes sense to bring parts into. And we can see up here that this pin, the long pin, is fixed at the origin. So the top face of that is fixed at the origin. And so we want to bring in that piece first. That's going to be our fixed piece. Everything else is going to float. So when we go about this, we'll go here and I'll go to where I have everything saved. And we can open up this part and we'll bring in the long pin. And I say open. Now you'll be tempted to just bring this in and click right away. But we don't want to do that. What we want to do is go up here, you want to click the green check mark. And when you do that, it brings it in. And now if you go and you look at where our origin's at, it centered that origin onto the center of that pin. So now this pin is fixed where we want it to be. And we don't need to worry about moving it around or anything like that. So it's the orientation that we want. All right, so now we're going to go up and we're going to insert some more components. So we're going to bring in a chain, and we're going to bring in another long pin and a short pin. We can just bring those both in at the same time. And here's our short pin. Okay, so all of these are now floating except for this one. This one's our fixed piece, right? So it doesn't move around. All the rest of these can move around. So if we look at the drawing, we can see that we need 4 of these and we need 3 of these and we needed the 2 of these pins. So what we can do to make more of these is if you push and hold Control and then click on the body that you want, you can pull it away, and then we can click again and pull away here, and then we get 4 of them because both of these were still selected. So with this one, push Control and we'll get 1, click off of it, and get another one. That way we don't get 4. All right, so now we have all the parts that we need. And assembly for this is actually relatively straightforward and simple. So what we can do here is we can look and see that we've got some concentric assembly, and then we've got some surfaces that are going to match up. So some coincidental surfaces matching up. So we'll start by click on the inside of this circle here, and we can click on the shaft here, and we get our mates options here. So we're going to pick concentric. You can see that flips that around, and now we can click on this face and push Control and click on this face, and we can say coincidental. All right, so that brings that up. Now you'll notice that in the drawing, this face here is running parallel to our X plane, right? So if we look here, that is our front plane, right? And so it's going to be running parallel to that. So if we click on that face and we push Control and we click on the front plane, we can then make them parallel. All right, so now those parts that's parallel to the front plane. This piece is still fixed at the origin. So if we look at the origin, still fixed at the origin. And this piece can't spin now, so it's locked into place, which is fine because in the drawing it shows it in that orientation. All right, so now we just go forward with our construction. So our next piece can be this gear. We'll click on the inside bore of that, and then this bore here, and we're going to make those concentric. And then we can drag this over a little bit. We can click on that face and click on this face, and we can make them coincidental. And we can just keep going like that with all of these pieces for right now. So we'll kick here, concentric, and this face, this face. Oh, I forgot to push control. Control on this face. Coincident. Here, here, concentric, and this face, and that face. Okay, so that's got all those locked in. Now we just need to put the pins in. So we can click on there, and we can click inside here, say concentric. Then we click on that face and this face, line them up. Click here, concentric, this face, that face, coincident, here, here, concentric, and this face, that face, coincidence. Alright, and then our final piece is going to be this here, and this line here. We're going to say those are concentric. And if you look at the drawing, we want this to go in a downwards direction. And this is going to be important. We have to have everything built correctly. So our center, because what we'll be testing is a center of mass on this. So now we click on this face, push control, click on that face, and make those two coincident. All right. So there we go. That's our completed assembly. So like I said, it was relatively simple. And you can see now that as we move pieces around, we can see this in the kind of orientation that we have for the drawing. So let's spin here and get ourselves roughly into the orientation that we see on the drawing. Okay, so we can see that this one needs to tip in a little bit. This one we want it to bring it down. Right? We'll tip this one in a little bit more and tip this one back a little bit more. It gives us roughly into the same orientation that the drawing is, and that will help us out a little bit here when we're putting in our measurements. So now the next thing we want to do is we want to do our angles for this drawing. And so if we go over and we look at the document and we scroll down, we can see on here we have an A, B, and C. And you might be tempted to use the global variables. You don't have to do that though with this one, just because we're only going to be manipulating this a few times. And so it's honestly a little bit more work to go and do that, where you can just enter these in and call it good right off the bat. So we have A is equal to 25, B is equal to 125, and C is equal to 130. But we can go in here and we can go into our mates dialog. And what we want to do is we want to click on this face here and then push control and click on this face here. And so it automatically is like, all right, are we doing angles here? We can go down here and we say angle. And you can see here that if we type in 25 and push enter, it turns itself inside out. So we want to actually change the relationship of that so that we have that there. And then we want to flip this direction, because you can see that it's actually angled down. So basically what it's doing is it's changing how the mate alignment is set up. So if we flip direction there, we now have our angle correct. And so we say okay. And now we can continue on inside this dialog. You don't need to close the mate dialog yet. You just push enter and then that sets up that mate. And so now we have our angle between this face here and this face here. So we're going to click on that face. And we're going to click on this face. And our angle here is going to be 125. So our angle here is 125. And you can see there, we didn't actually have to adjust what our relationship was. All right, and then finally we have this angle here between these two faces. So now we can say enter, and now we can click on this face here and that face there. And we can go to angle, and C was going to be 130. Let me say enter. All right, and so now we have our orientation of our part in the angles that they wanted it to be in. So we say OK, push enter, and then we can click the checkbox, and we see we have our part here. So that's our mates all done for this, and for this part of the question. Now the next thing that we want to do is we want to go in and we want to figure out what our center of mass is for that. So we do the same thing that we did before. We say evaluate, and we go up and we go mass properties. None of the mass properties, you have your mass like we had before, but then down here we have our center of mass for our x, y, and z. And so we have the 348.66, negative 88.48, and negative 91.4. And we see if we look in the PDF that is A is our option for that. So it's kind of nice that they have multiple choice at the beginning here, because if you didn't have anything that was close to any of these answers, you'd kind of be wondering what you were doing wrong. So this gives us our value for the first one. And now what we can do is we can close this assembly here. We can scroll down in the document, and we can see that they want us to modify our piece again. And basically all we're doing for this is we're just changing those angles again. So if we go to our mates here, we can go down to our angle. We have this angle here. We can actually edit that angle, and they want that angle to be 30. We say OK. Edit this angle. They want that angle to be 115. Okay. And we can edit this angle. And they want that angle to be 135. All right. And so we say OK. And now we can go up and we can go under evaluate again. Oh, we want to get out of our mates. We can go up evaluate and we can say mass properties. Once again here, now we have different values for our center of mass, and we would write those in. And so in this case, we'd have to write in our center of mass. Don't forget your negative values for your x's and your y's, and in your z's, just in case they're there. It does make a difference on what your center of mass is. So that's the assembly part for the practice exam, and it's pretty simple. There's no mechanical mates or anything like that, or advanced mates that you would have to worry about, no gears or anything like that. It's pretty simple assembly. So that's that for this, and if you got any questions, let me know.